Welcome to a most glorious morning at the Circuit Paul Ricard in the south of France. This is the third round of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS. This is the second of the endurance rounds after a sprint round at Brands Hatch. We're building up to 6 hours tonight. My name's Bruce Jones and I'm joined by Jake Sanson in the commentary box. We are all set, but it's qualifying. This is the quickfire part.
We certainly are. This is going to be a very exciting part of the day. 21.7 degrees air temperature, 10 degrees higher of the track itself. Humidity is still quite high. We've had some rain over the last 2 to 3 days, particularly a heavy shower that affected free practice yesterday. Definitely going to make things interesting for the teams as they have to try and be a little bit more on the fly in terms of their setup. They've obviously got good data to carry from the dry sections of the day over the last 2 days of running, but it has been very interesting to try and figure out what the circuit is actually going to do, what it's going to give them. And now that we go into these 3 groups of qualifying, this is where we're really on the ragged edge. And don't forget that at Monza, we only got 2 out of those 3 sessions run. So for the third drivers, this will be the first time they've qualified all year.
Now the track map it's basically the shape of a long hairpin, but the key part of the circuit is the enormously long Mistral straight at the back, and then the right-hander at the end, Senior, such a difficult corner. Then the twist and turn back through the final section onto the start-finish straight. But the first corner, look at it, looks like a little kink to the left. It's far more complicated. We'll come to that come the race. But right now it's about all these drivers getting the focus, getting the banker lap in, and then going for one. But track conditions could not be better. But one thing that has to be added, 2 words in fact, track limits. The stewards will be watching. Already drivers are picking up warning points for that. And the track, if you want to know, is not the part with the blue and red stripes, it's the part between the white lines. Very complicated. But down in the pits, we're looking at Alessia Rivera, the 51 AF Corsa Francorchamps Motorsport Ferrari, the new shape for 2023, the incredibly sleek 296 GT3. And that is definitely one of the favourites going into this qualifying. But let's see how they fare.
Yeah, they really struggled in Monza in terms of the straight line speed. They didn't really get the best out of qualifying, but where they came strong was the race. They've clearly built a car that's going to be better as the day progresses. And when you've got a 6-hour race, that's when the Ferrari 296 is really going to start to turn it on. Here's Valentino Rossi. Now, he's got a bit of pressure on him today. Don't forget, last time out at Monza, he had a crash in practice. His teammates had to do the hard work, and it was a tough mission for him to go completely, having not done any qualifying laps, into the first hour at Monza. But he did a fantastic job. He only actually made 1 mistake through the entirety of that first stint, which was to basically trip over the curbs in that first section of the chicane and then just kick it into anti-stall. He lost about 15 seconds. Other than that, he had been fairly flawless for that entire first hour, and coming off the back of his first podium as well at Brands Hatch. You know, Valentino is really riding the crest of a wave. He should have a really strong weekend.
All sports about carrying momentum and the confidence that comes with it. But look across the various manufacturers you have in the Fanatec GT World Series, and we've seen the BMWs, we've seen the Ferraris, and BMW certainly riding strong. They won the leading endurance round. I'll just kick back to Monza, of course. Long race, this is far longer. We're going from day into night, and we will have the fall of temperature. So for the engineers, they've got to work out what is going to be the sweet spot for the drivers as they work towards the conclusion of tonight's 6-hour race. But all the pros getting in. But again, worth pointing out, we've got 5 classes of drivers going out to qualify here. We will have the battles within the overall battle of the race. But looking at the Ferraris down there, we are going to head down to AF Course World and hear from one of the drivers of 51. It's Nicholas Nielsen.
Nicholas, Alessia is taking the first stint. What are you expecting from this session?
Well, the funny thing is, you know, whenever we come to these races, we never really know what to expect before we get to the quali. So the car seemed quite good yesterday on race pace. So hopefully we can do something good in the quali to be a bit further ahead for the race compared to what we were in Monza.
Thank you very much. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Yeah, interesting. Their discussion is very, very low key. They don't really want to hype themselves up at any point. He just wandered over there talking to his teammate Robert Schwartzman. They've got to be very careful. They don't want to build this up too high. There was a lot of expectation, I think, at Monza, brand new 296, Ferrari being as big as they were and are as a manufacturer. They obviously want to come fresh out of the blocks with new equipment and prove that they're the best. And they've actually, I think, had to take a bit of a step back from that to sort of realize, you know, this is going to be a season of where we learn our car. We're not going to dominate. We're going to have to learn and progress as we develop the car. They came through in the end at Monza. That was the fantastic thing. All through the weekend, myself and Watty, we were there kind of going, where is the Ferrari? It's got no pace, it's got no passion. But they managed to bring it back. They really did their homework overnight, and they learned how to get a good result out of the race. So again, if they've done their homework again after Brands, if they've looked at all of the different pieces of the jigsaw, they might be able to come up with a really nice frame picture at the end of it.
Well, let's wait and see. And in qualifying itself, it's about getting the quick lap. It's also about having space on the circuit with 57, yes, I did say 57 cars coming out to play on this Circuit Paul Ricard. They're going to have to make their own space, not make any mistakes. And even the simplest error of just going a bit sideways doesn't help your tyre life. That's not what these racing tyres were designed for. So look, listen and learn. Again, just to reiterate, we've got the Pro class, we've got the gold, the silver, the bronze, and the Pro-Am class. So we've got all these classes, everyone going for class pole, but obviously even if you're in one of the, let's say, junior classes, you want your class pole to be as close to the front of the field heading onto the grid for tonight's race. We start at 6 o'clock, but right now conditions pretty much perfect. There is light cloud around the circuit. This is a view from the very bottom end of the circuit, and shortly we'll show you the cars as they go up the fabled Mistral Straight. It rises and rises and goes on, and there's a fabulous corner at the end. We will show you scene shortly, but right now, great to see these cars coming out on the track. A real mix of all these manufacturers. The cars, their performance balanced out by balanced performance scientific black magic, and that is why we have so many manufacturers coming here to play, and that's why it's so popular all around the world. The 4 GT World Challenge Series sponsored by Fanatec here in Asia, in Australia and America. Very, very busy indeed, and growing all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why the Fanatec GT World Challenge is the best championship on the planet for sports cars now. It's all the same categories, so many fantastic cars. All the best brands are here to play, and they are developing and they are working all the time. They're leaving nothing on the table either. The teams are getting great support from the manufacturers at factory level, so you're really starting to learn about what these cars can do. Session in, session out, you're really starting to learn it. Interesting coming into Q1, a lot of the teams, including WRT, didn't actually make their decision as to who was going to be in qualifying 1, qualifying 2, qualifying 3 until last night, until after the practice session. And certainly in the 46 crew, they've sent Valentino Rossi out first. That's interesting.
Well, you know, I had in my initial list Valentino down in 3rd place. Looking right now at Andrei Mukazov going up the long Mistral Straight. And again, just looking at the outline of these cars, fabulous shapes. But Tracer or Tempto Racing, every year the ante is raised with their race liveries. And with 57 cars on the field, you need to stand out.
He ran off the road there, actually, as we were talking about him. So Valentino ran off the... Don't tell me he's had an incident already. Look at that.
Well,
right
just coming
side front wheel.
Yeah, we'll just have to see if he's picked up a puncture there, but certainly the 46 Team WRT BMW, or
something's not right.
Something is not right. I thought for a second he made a mistake, just wants the space in traffic. We'll keep an eye out on that one. We're waiting, of course, too, for the first car to come through to start its first flying lap.
I wonder if he's come into contact with something on that right front, because something doesn't quite look right on that right front quarter. So, I mean, I'm assuming the reason that they've put him out first is because he didn't get the chance to qualify at all at Monza, because he was the 3rd named driver at Monza. Yeah, look, there's rubbing. There's definite steam coming off the back end of the car. I think he's hit something on his outlap. That is an absolute disaster. Well,
this is what it looks like at the top of the at the top of the Mistral Straight. That is not your normal approach speed, so really unfortunate for the Skechers sponsored BMW from Team WRT coming in slowly, and these sessions are very quick fire. Must be so painful. It's like having to stay under a pit lane speed limit where it just seems as though you're pulling yourself through treacle. Cars still coming in and out of the pits, but they're in more normal form.
And he's got to do it slowly, because you've got to get it back to the pits so that your teammates have a chance of getting out there for Q2 and Q3. But you've also got to be very, very slow as you go back in, because you don't want to damage any more components of the car that have already been damaged. So you have to be so cautious on your way in. Here's Christopher Mies pushing himself. The number 5 is out there as well. That is, of course, Charlie Fagg in the McLaren trying to work his way forward. Purple for Sector 1 for Christopher Mies in the Audi, and purple in Sector 2 for Simonauer in the BMW. So already people starting to put in some good times.
Yeah, well, that obviously on their first flying lap, the first car around will have a purple sector, and so it will go second time around. Second flying lap, we'll get to see what really is the gold standard. But at the moment, it's just waiting for those first flying laps to come in. Christopher Mies in the number 25 Audi from Santalot Racing. Easy to pick out its Brew livery with got Porsches on the track as well, of course. It was great to see the McLaren. I love the different shapes of all the manufacturers out there, and so do the fans. I mean, that's half of the appeal of the championship.
Absolutely right. Fanatec GT World, you've got so many identities as they come through. Mies is going to try and come through. Kingsley's actually gone better in the second sector now, so he's setting the standard in the silver category car. Obviously, these first laps are only going to be bankers, really. They're not going to be true representatives. But Christopher Mies does in a 1:54.6, so that obviously puts us 1.3 ahead of Sandy Mitchell in the Lamborghini as he comes through. Kingsley on a decent lap as well. Expect the time to still be another couple of seconds quicker than this.
Yeah, and again, it's about, all right, Valentino Rossi's got 46 BMW for Team WRT back into the pit lane. Team, you reckon it was front right, damage there, potentially quite hard to pick out in the shadow there, but certainly the car being investigating. But all the time, the clock is ticking through. We've got 8 minutes, 40 seconds. So by the time they get that car back out...
Oh yeah, puncture.
Just a puncture.
Called it. You called it right.
Well, really, gosh. Now, what you have at Circuit Paul Ricard, you have the circuit marked like any circuit with white lines on the outside. And beyond, if you run wide and you've got graded painted thing. Let's take a look at a replay of the Rossi 46 BMW front right. Oh, is it? Yes, maybe. Oh, yes. Well, the piston have just gone down in. Well, that was slow-mo. That was the blink of an eye.
He hasn't even hit anything.
No.
And that was on his outlap as well.
That was very early in his outlap. That was down at about turn 3, effectively, in the stripes. Now.
Well, we're hearing reports that as he left the pits, there may have been a little bit of a clatter into the side of a Boutsen VDS car, but, I mean, that's very early going in, isn't it?
Very early and very, very expensive, because track time here is absolutely everything in these short-fire qualifying sessions, and that is a huge setback. And talk about putting pressure on yourself and the team, whether it's your fault or not. You've got to get the fresh tyre on the car, tick, the car is now back, he's got to go up to speed and then start to deliver. But by then, the clock will have, what, about 5 minutes left on it. That's real true pressure for Valentino Rossi. So it's still Santilok leading the way. Chris Mies, let's take a look at Alessio Rivera. Very good opening stint, second stint not quite as good, but still, well, the gap at the top's come right down because the number 5 McLaren, the Optima Motorsport car we saw, has moved up into second place with Charlie Fagg chasing after Christopher Mies. But Alessio Rivera is pressing on, trying to knit his way through the traffic, stay between the white lines. Track limits, always an issue at every circuit. Let's see what he's about to manage. Across the start-finish line, he will go out of that tight final corner.
Wow, and second
place. Oh, 0.179. He lost that actually mainly in the middle sector of the track. So, again, let's see how the Italian can set himself up. But for all these drivers, though, Jake, they're not even racing in this. A lot of them are looking at the big Ferrari return to Le Mans in the top class as well, these young guns.
I was just going to make that point. What a difference a month makes, because the Ferrari was dragging so back in terms of pace, but now they are in the top 5.
Right, we're just about to show you another replay of what may have happened to the number 46 BMW. Leaves the pit lane, goes out.
Oh, that's sloppy.
Oh, okay. That is unfortunate. Number 9 car released into its pass by Boutsen VDS, so no blame can be attached to Valentino Rossi there at all, but he's having to pay the price. Anyhow, whatever target he's aiming for is moving forward, because now Raffaele Marciello, the number 88 Acodis ASP Mercedes, is at the top of the charts. No wonder he's flashing his lights. He's 0.179 of a second ahead of that best time, the second best time from Alessio Rivera in the Ferrari. So it's Mercedes first, Marciello second place at the moment, Alessio Rivera, and third place Mercedes again with Mauro Engel. Raffaele Marciello and Mauro Engel at the top of the type sheets. That's fairly regular, isn't it? They are absolute superstars for Mercedes.
Yeah, Marciello definitely on the hunt, but he's been held up in the third sector by the Lamborghini. I think that's the 78 car.
Yeah, it's the Barwell Motorsport Pro-Am entry there.
Yeah, indeed. So that's the worst possible angle as well. Adam Ballon, unfortunately, catching him at the worst time, and I think he's actually bailed out as a result. That was looking to be a really fast time. I think that would have got us towards about the 1:53.5 mark, but he's just figured, you know what, it's a waste of a third sector. We need these tyres. Let's keep it going and do another one.
And again, the team would have been looking at all these images and watching, going, okay, just back it off, back it off. You've got a time. It's good for the top of the table at the moment, but yeah, how do you want to use your tyres across all 3 sessions?
This is great for Ferrari. They were absolutely nowhere in qualifying in Monza, and here they are. Rivera in second. And yeah, okay, Dan Serra, who has obviously just dropped into that car, don't forget, because he's the new boy in this particular car compared to last time out. Because Davide Rigon and Antonio Fuoco were there, but Daniel Serra was not. So Serra going out in the first session, and he's put it 14th so far.
Now, Mauro Engel in the third fastest car, the Almanar Racing white and black, beautiful livery on that 777 Mercedes. Likewise, we just saw that with Raffaele Marcello. Back out, make yourself a little bit of gap, just accelerating into the gap that he's made out of the final corner. He had the Rover Racing BMW on his tail. They'll be both very, very quick indeed, but the last thing you want to do is start a flying lap with some slower drivers just in your path. And as we saw, you can easily get blocked in those twisters down to the bottom, the lowest point of the circuit, turn 5 at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, you got a feel for the Almanar Mercedes crew. This was the race that got away at Monza, wasn't it? They ended up retiring, and it really was an opportunity knocking for them. So they're going to come here to Paul Ricard very motivated, very fired up. They obviously want to come away with, I think they're looking at a podium minimum as far as they're concerned. They want to get their season back on track, and the best way to do that is to come back with big points.
We're looking at Christopher Mies. 3 minutes ago, he was top of the charts, down in 10th. That just shows how the cars have worked their way through. He's now got to build it back up. We've got 3.25 minutes remaining. Look out for this number 25 Santilot racing car. It's going to be very, very quick. And, of course, in the Endurance Cup, Jake, you have 3 drivers. So the real key is to get all of them on the pace. Your best aggregate across 30. It doesn't affect your qualifying position, but certainly in terms of the team chief, would go good, happy going into the race.
So there's only one car that hasn't set a time so far, and that is Adamateki, the car that actually nudged Valentino Rossi when it tried to leave the pits. So that car clearly has left front damage based on them trying to get out. It was just a lack of communication or a miscommunication, whatever it might be, that caused them to just hit the throttle when there was a car to their left already trying to get out.
Yeah, I think whatever damage was done there and then. You're quite right, Jake. So Raffaele Marcello still top of the charts by 0.3 of a second. He's set a 1 minute 53.745. Again, your prediction was right. The initial lap from Christopher Mies will be beaten by 2 seconds or so. We may yet go quicker, but again, traffic is going to be an issue. But right now, for Raffaele Marcello, he's doing the job. Mauro Engel, actually saying Lucas Stoltz on the screen there, I thought for a second, in the 777 Almanar Racing Mercedes, also has the pace to it, and again it's got their Rover Racing BMW, the car, the M4 GT3 that was so strong, it won at Monza. So look to see where that's going to place, but at the moment the best of the BMWs, and it's not in a sweet spot, it's not at the top of the table, it's down in 13th place, the 98 and the sister car, 998, 13th and 14th position, so speed needs to come.
It's going to be a much tougher battle for them in qualifying. You've got to remember that although Monza and Paul Ricard are both about high speed, they're very different natures of circuit. I mean, Monza is fairly flat, whereas Paul Ricard, you do get some elevation, you do get some camber changes, so the car will behave differently at Paul Ricard compared to how it will at Monza, and that's where you're going to get a real change, a real diversity within the top 10, where BMW was so strong and so on the pace at Monza, and they just fell into that natural rhythm. You can see here, look, the fastest BMW is 13th, 14th, 17th, 23rd. It's a completely different nature. We were talking about this in the GT4 race qualifying session a little earlier. The moral of the story from Monza seemed to be across both GT3 and GT4, get a BMW. The moral of the story here is get anything other than a BMW.
Well, I tell you what, someone who does have a BMW, look at him right now, Dries Van Toor, you think, 18th position, that's not where you normally find a Dries Van Toor and Team WRT, so again, he's having, it's not a malaise, it's just where they are at the moment, but he hasn't got much time left, a minute and 15 seconds to get this lap and a following one to move himself up the chart. But if anyone's ever spoken to Dries Van Toor, you know he will not take anything lying down, he will give his absolute all, but he can only eke the maximum out of the car. And again, we had the flurry of rain yesterday. That affected their time out on the circuit. Some drivers, you always think everybody's raced at Paul Ricard, but some are coming here for the first time, so a lot to learn. But Dries Van Toor, huge success across the past half-dozen years or so, but that was in an Audi for Team WRT. This year, well, another car to learn.
And that's it. He's bailed, so that's the end of the session for Dries Van Toor. So he's going to have to then look at handing the car over next up to Sheldon van der Linde and hope that he can do something better in Q2. And of course, they take all 3 of the times combined from the sessions to set the grid for the 6 hours, the 1,000 kilometers later today. So obviously every driver has to be on it and maximize exactly every inch of what the car can do. What that always gives us though is that you've got 3 different types of driver sometimes across these particular cup crews. So Q1 will not necessarily bear any relation to what the final grid is going to be, because you'll have Marcello go out, then Boguslavski, who sometimes has a bit of a hiccup in qualifying, and then Gunon will pop up and find a fantastic lap from somewhere.
Okay, so just paraphrase that. We have 3 qualifying sessions, and how do they get knitted together? If someone's seeing this for the very first time.
So essentially the times from the 3 sessions are then combined to form a grid. So essentially instead of taking the average, you take the fastest lap from each, you add them, and then it becomes the full total of the lap. So even though you're getting fastest in Q1, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be pole for the race, because if your other two drivers end up being at a different level, then that's going to be different. Just getting race control there, telling us that the next session will start at 11:22.
Now, as you can see from the graphic in the bottom right, Raffaele Marcello is sharing with Timo Bogoslawski, Jules Gounod. Raffaello set the fastest time. He's confident that was good enough, so he's come in and he's giving maximum time by coming in before the session is quite over. In fact, the checkered flag is now out for the second driver, Timo Bogoslawski, to come in. He'll brief him on how the track conditions have changed, if they have from yesterday. That is good teamwork when you get your top driver to put down the standard, explain all to the driver. Timo Bogoslawski sit in. His role is to come in Q2, and as we just told you, 11:22, 6 minutes from now will be the start of the next qualifying session. So anybody who's still completing their last flying lap, they won't be back for another 2 minutes, and the driver for Q2 will have less time to bed themselves in, get in the car, get comfortable.
That's a key element you point out there, Bruce. It's so important to give yourself just that little bit of extra time to get out of the car, get the new driver in, settle in, and debrief from Q1, ready for Q2. You cannot underestimate just that little added time, that little added 90, 120 seconds, whatever it might be, just because you've got to get that driver ready, settled, in the mindset. If you're rushing that process, that's when things can go wrong, like when we saw Adamateki just disappearing out of the pit straight into Valentino Rossi's right front quarter. It's those little elements, when you push yourself in terms of time, when you run yourself short, that's when those mistakes creep in.
Right, Adamateki did actually get out right near the end of the second, moved up to 46th place overall. Talking 46, I'm looking to see where the driver 46, Valentino Rossi, after that unfortunate clash with Adamateki, is only a couple of places further up, in fact 3 places further up, in 43rd. But that first session belonged to Raffaele Marcello from the number 88 Acodis ASP Mercedes. And let's go down and hear from the tall and very rapid Swiss driver.
Raffaele, no surprises to see you on top there. Fantastic style drive from you in Q1. Do you think Timur can keep that pace in the second session?
Yeah, I mean, like normally we always struggle a bit in Paul Ricard, so I mean, we work quite hard this year to try to be better here. I mean, the car is working well all the weekend, and yeah, we'll see now Timur in Q2.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cool, calm, collected, and very, very quick indeed, Raffaele Marcello. So this was his car, the number 88 Acodis ASP Mercedes, and it was so quick for that qualifying session. It went by in the blink of an eye. A few incidents there, Jake, but we got the quicker cars largely to top. I'm sure if I have time to analyse the entire list, I'll see the some who didn't nail it, but we can say the BMWs were not at the top. It was Mercedes at the very top of the chart. Raffaele Marcello clear by 0.3 of a second from, well, if you're a Ferrari fan, you'll be happy, Alessio Rivera, the 51 AF Corsa. 296 GT3 in second place. Another Mercedes, that's Almanar Racing with Mauro Engel in third. Then brilliant job from McLaren with Enrique Chavez in the 188 car coming fourth place. Just 0.6 of a second down on Marcello's very, very best indeed. 0.02 of a second faster than the number 40 Audi of Riccardo Feller. Sixth place, another Audi, that was Christopher Haase. Then Lorenzo Ferrari going very well in the number 87 Acodis ASP Mercedes in seventh place. And looking through the class leaders, I ought to mention, of course, the 188 McLaren was top of the bronze class. So that was a really outstanding run from Enrique Chavez in fourth place overall. The next best in class was the driver in ninth, which was Ben Barker, always in a Porsche, and he's just one place behind the lead Porsche in the top 10, which is eighth place, which is Thomas Priding, and completing the top 10. Good day for AF Corsa with their Ferraris, Jake, because that's 2 in the top 10, with Daniel Serra joining the team and going up into 10th place.
Such a better performance from Ferrari this time. Also good to keep an eye on the silver category. GRT Grasser, the leading Lamborghini in that particular battle. Good run from Clement Schmidt there to go 25th, just in front of the Dynamic GT Hubert and Trezor Attempto cars. That's going to be a really interesting battle. Remember how strong Lorenzo Patrese was at Monza. They're keeping it a little bit lower key this time, but I tell you what, they're still going to be up for the win in silver. It's definitely going to be a very interesting one. Also worth noting, Charlie Fagg in the Optimum McLaren, they're 12th position, so that's a really good start for Charlie Fagg. It's looking good for them to challenge for the pole position in gold if they can continue that sort of streak.
So strike one has been effected. Driver's already strapped in, helmeted up, hopefully briefed, all ready to head out at 11:22 for qualifying number 2. But the first qualifying session belonged to Raffaele Marcello, who set the pace. 1 minute 53.745 seconds in the 88 Mercedes. Well, qualifying is always very quick fire. Qualifying session number 1 was underway, and very soon the cars were finding just how much heat and grip was out in the track today. It was 31 degrees track temperature, 21 degrees air temperature, and Christopher Mies set the very early pace, Jake, in the number 25 Santalot Racing Audi.
He definitely got himself off to the starting blocks very well. Great to see the McLarens putting on a great show, particularly Charlie Fagg and also Enrique Chavez battling themselves into a good position there. Pole position provisionally in both categories for the McLarens, so a very good start for them. They're definitely looking very good in both gold and bronze. Good run from the Almanar Mercedes. They were strong. Mauro Engel doing a great job in the top three, and it looks like the Mercedes is the best all-round car to have. Great to see Ferrari back where they belong.
Yeah, Ferrari came here, and as you pointed out beforehand, they're scratching their heads a little bit, but certainly they did very well with the second fastest time overall set by Alessio Rivera, but he couldn't quite match the pace of Raffaele Marciello, who did what he did. He goes out, he sets the fastest time, calls in. That was qualifying session 1, and it belonged to the 88 Mercedes. So, calm before the storm, the second of the qualifying sessions for Fanatec GT World, and the first one was a cracker. I'd like to analyse it all over again, because with 57 cars going out, even though 56 got out for the first while because there was a clash in the pit lane that certainly set Valentino Rossi back a bit, but it was about not just getting the ultimate lap, Jake. In so many ways, it was about getting the information through to the second and the third drivers in the group, and it was not getting yourself blocked in traffic.
Too right, and you look at there, Valentino Rossi chatting away with his teammates, and there is a sense of frustration, and you can sense that. I think that's completely changed Valentino's prep. Nothing he could do about it, completely not his own making either. So he's on the back foot, but you know, he's doing exactly what he's been good at since he came into Fanatec GT World. He's taken on the team element, that chemistry, that vibe. He was in the roundtable yesterday with the journalists. He was talking up his chances. You know, Brands Hatch did a lot for his confidence. He now feels like he has that authority as a GT driver. He's come in, he's not just here as a big name coming in doing something special. He has that ability now, he has that tenacity. He feels he's got the confidence to really stretch it. I think Q1 has really hampered him because, in a sense, he didn't really get the chance to do things the way he's supposed to do.
Now, there are always variables. We start Q2. Interesting to look in the mountains behind the circuit here. Grey clouds are gathering. I think we'll get through all of qualifying before the rain arrives, but as we saw on Thursday and Friday, when the rain comes in here, it comes in very quickly indeed. Now, Lucas Stoltz will be the driver, taking over from Mauro Engel to do this second qualifying session, the 777 Almanar Racing Mercedes. They're in some of the garages down towards the pit exit end of the pit lane. That means they've got fewer cars to go past before they get out onto the circuit.
Indeed. They need to put some wheels on that thing first. I mean, they're kind of leaving it to the latest point to put the tyres on. What is interesting to note as well is that now we're going into this second session. It's time for the big guns to come out and try and salvage something at BMW. You've got Augusta Farfus now going out in the 46, and also you've got Sheldon van der Linde going out in the 32. So it's time to bring some of the big players to try and elevate BMW a little bit further forward. The Ferraris, they're sending out Robert Schwartzman and Davide Rigon this time. Be interesting to see what they can do. Watch out for the 63 Lamborghini as well. Andrea Caldarelli could produce something quite special in this session. Also at Audi, you've got Drudi, Magnus, you've got Stoltz in the Mercedes. They're going to want to try and push up to the pole position. They've got a good chance to do that. So there's a lot of interesting elements coming into this Q2.
Well, good to see a sizable crowd already. A lot of them will be coming for the will be coming for the big game, the 6-hour race this evening. That starts at 6 o'clock. Good to see some already in this glorious late spring sunshine, early summer sunshine here high above the Riviera, and certainly it's that few degrees cooler surrounded by the pine trees. It's a lovely, lovely setting here on the plateau. Been used since 1970, the Circuit Paul Ricard, and it still has a lot of magic to it. But many manufacturers down. Sky Tempesta Racing moved across to the McLaren. It's lower, it's sleeker. From their point of view, they're hoping it's even faster than what they've raced before, the success they've achieved. And Chris Froggatt spearheads that team, showing with Eddie Cheever III and Jonathan Hui, driver from Hong Kong. So don't all rush out at exactly the same moment when pit opens. And just run down the order again, because these times are going to start changing. The graphic you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen will be the aggregate. So as the best lap for any of these cars in this session achieved.
So yeah, it's an interesting situation to see that Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren and Audi have essentially got the best cars to come up forward. But the Porsches are worth a watch. You've got Heinrich and Narken coming out in the 96 and 55 cars. They were particularly strong in Q1 for Preining and Ben Barker. So watch out for the Porsches. They were a little bit under the radar last time out. Even Hanche Guven did a reasonable job to get that car into the top 20, but Muller's going out now in the number 54 car, so watch out for them. And here is the 62.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting tactic. This is young British racer Cian Jewis, Team Parker Racing, the one car here. They just got out absolutely the second they could. And the big danger, it means that they could be about to start their first flying lap as the other cars are coming out of the pits, just, you know, getting a bit of heat in their tyres. It's a bit of a risk, but I think it might pay, because just waiting for a first time in this session to go on the board, and certainly Team Parker Racing, bold roll of the dice, and it could be the sort of gambit that raises them 5 or 6 places up the grid. So good to see the British team having a little shuffle there.
Yeah, the whole thing is a balancing act. Here's Sam de Haag, who's obviously watched his teammate push the McLaren into 12th position, so they are the leading gold car at the moment. They have a real chance to maybe even go even higher on the grid. I mean, it's ultimate for them that they want to go for the gold pole position, and I think they've got a really good shout of doing that. All 3 drivers have that consistency. The only real challenge I can see really from them is going to be from the BMW, the number 30 car. However, you have an opportunity when you're in that team looking at that lap time from Q1. There's an opportunity to put the car into the top 10 of the grid, and that will be so tempting. They really want to try and push for that if they can. Yes, there's a gold victory and a gold pole position to consider, but if you can get into the top 10 outright, why wouldn't you push for it?
Hold me back, I think was what a driver would think. When you have an opportunity to, put yourself, because you look at the very top drivers in the top cars here, in the pro lineup, all pro drivers, and if you can put some of those behind you, that is a real feather in your cap. Still waiting for Timo Bogoslawski, well, to get enough wheels on his cars to go out and play, but the 88 Codis ASP Mercedes is the car that was quickest in the first session, thanks to Raffaele Marcello, and when Timo goes out, he will be building on that. The margin was 0.32 of a second.
There you go, straight away, no waiting around. Cian Jewis' first lap, a 1:54.9. Bang, they mean business. They are obviously going to try and go a lot quicker than Derek Pierce managed. And that car is already averaging at a 1:56.0, so they've already got the average time down by a second just by sending Cian Jewis out there on a fresh set of boots with clear tracks, and that's why they've done that.
And it's important. Derek Pierce, the first driver out in that car, welcome to have him back in the series this year after a few years away. He was down in about the low 50s. That car was the first car to set an aggregate, a double aggregate. We've now got 4 cars that have managed that, but still, the number 62 Porsche from Team Parker Racing is top. Sorry, did I say is? I mean was. Other times are coming in. It was beaten by 1,000ths of a second on aggregate by Alessio Rivera's new teammate, Robert Schwartzman, who's put the Ferrari 51 into second place, but 33 is the number at the top of the charts, and that's Jacob Riegel, built on Jeff Kingsley's time. And good to have the Aston Martin there. So Bullet Racing, really enjoying their rise up to GT3 from GT4.
For me, the men to watch in this session are this man, Augusto Farfus, who obviously wants to try and push the 46 WRT up the grid, and also Robert Schwartzman. So many people have so many good things to say about Robert. He just seems to have this mentality. He's taken this opportunity to get into the Ferrari GT program as a golden chance. He thinks, right, Le Mans on the horizon, Spa 24 is on the horizon, I can really build this as a proper Ferrari ethos for me. I can make this my home for so many years. And he has come into it. Monza, he did a fantastic job considering where the Ferrari was. This time, it's clear the Ferrari is on the pace. Watch for Schwartzman. It would not shock me at all if he goes fastest in Q2.
Yeah, he's a classic case of the modern world of racing. Try your luck in single-seaters. Win as much as you can, which he did, but then the market has opened here. GTs into prototype racing, and he's certainly one of the anointed ones. But at the moment, Sandy Mitchell's best time in the first session has been added to by Marco Mappelli to put the number 6 K-Pax Racing Lamborghini top. We're looking at another Lamborghini. It's Michele Beretta in the Bio Circle car. That's the car he shares with Rolfie Neichen. And at the moment, this is a classic case of a driver just getting up to speed here, going through this very twisty opening sector of the lap. Don't go over onto the white lines. Concerned face from Dries van Tor. Of course, he's a driver normally at the front, but with BMW's not shining in that first session, that's somewhat down the order.
Sheldon van der Linde, fastest of all in Sector 2.
Yeah, and Sheldon van der Linde nearly dropping it off the circuit there. The tail came out and very nearly wagged the dog.
I tell you what, Thomas Drouet in the 87 Codis Mercedes, he's gone quickest in Sector 1 of anybody, 33.3, so expect that car to shoot up the rankings. That's going to be really strong to see how that particular Mercedes is able to motor on. But Sheldon van der Linde, the BMW does seem to have good middle sector pace. It's only really in Sector 1, Sector 3 where they lack a little, but I think that's where the BMW is really going to start to be strong over the course of these 3 qualifying sessions. It seems to be Sector 2 where the BMW seems to have the best pace, where it's the most similar to Monza.
Yeah, but unfortunately there was a little mistake, well, quite a big mistake on that lap from Sheldon Van Linder, so he had to gather it back together, and that means his car is not yet totally at the sharp end, but it's actually good enough. That middle sector, I thought he'd lost too much. That moved him up into second place overall. A quarter of a second needs to be found, and then that will topple the number 40 Audi from the very top of the charts. Great run there from Matteo Drudi, as ever, building on the work of Riccardo Feller to put the 4C to the top of the charts. So they'll be very pleased indeed at Tracer Orange 1. There it is. That was in the heart of the action. Off the track somewhat, down at the bottom of the hill. That is will be a track limits warning, or was he pulling off because there is something untoward with his car? But
yeah, we should point out that the Q2 times that you're looking at there, these are the aggregate times with Q1 and Q2 added together. The outright time from Q2 has actually been set by Sheldon Van Linder. His lap was good enough to go fastest in Q2, but it's only good enough to be second out in the average. So that lap from Stoltz has now put them into provisional pole, a 154.1 for them, because Stoltz's lap was just a 154.0. So when you add the average to Maro Engels of 154.222, it comes up with a 154.1. So the times on the left of your screen, that is the average if you add Q1 to Q2, and that's how we get our ultimate pole position lap. So the Q2 times currently, it's Stoltz ahead of Van der Linde, Drudi, and David Schumacher, who's just put the Winward Mercedes up into 4th place, ahead of Timo Boguslavski in the leading Acolis ASP Mercedes now. They've gone 5th. But when you add the times together, that's when things change.
right, let's cast our mind back. Which car was fastest at the end of Q1? Number 88. It was nowhere. Suddenly went up briefly. Timo Boguslavski late out of the pits. He put it fastest overall, building on Raffaele Marcello's best time in Sector 1. But now, Ferrari fans, it's the 51 Ferrari that's at the top of the charts. Looking at the tail of the number 40 Matteo Drudi, driven Audi. Well, he's trying to get a slipstream down past the pits. Will that propel him any higher than 4th? No, he's still stuck in 4th place. But traffic, traffic, traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. Rigon has actually set the fastest time of Q2. He's just done a 154.0, as has Robert Schwartzman. And there is, I'm not joking, there's literally less than a tenth of a second between the top 4 cars now in Q2 alone. Rigon in the Ferrari, Stoltz in the Mercedes, Van der Linde in the WRT BMW, and Schwartzman in the second of course, Ferrari. And that's put Schwartzman into aggregate pole position for the time being. There's Farfus clocking in the times, and they've rocketed up. They were about 40th, and now they're up to 25th, thanks to Farfus.
Yeah, what we're going to see, we've got just over 4.5 minutes remaining. The fastest times should be coming just before the checkered flag, but in the pits, Raffaele Marcello will be holding up his hand saying, nobody got beneath 1 minute 54. I did in the first session. At the moment, they're about 0.3 of a second down on him, and a big twitch from, oh dearie me, the number 19 Iron Lynx Lamborghini out wide beyond. And those painted lines on beyond the circuit, with each one you go over, the paint becomes more, the surface becomes more abrasive. When you get on the red stuff, it's like going over sandpaper. But in its own way, that worked because it slowed the car more as it was getting on the grippy stuff. That was a big moment for Michele Beretta, unfortunately.
Yeah, and those tyres are not going to be anywhere near good enough to get that kind of lap again. Schwartzman's going for another fast one, but thanks to his work on that previous fastest lap and the work of his teammate Alessio Rivera in Q1, the Ferrari is genuinely looking like it could end up with the aggregate pole position, because obviously you have to add Q1, Q2 and Q3 together to get the average. But certainly Schwartzman going 4th quickest in Q2 compared to his teammate Davide Rigon, who's gone fastest in Q2. But after the time you add that to Daniel Serras, and it comes up to 5th over in the average. But look how close it is on aggregate. The top 4 cars on the average of the 2 sessions are covered by just over a tenth of a second.
It's super close. Right now, a little snapshot with just over 3 minutes remaining in this session. It's Ferrari, that's number 51, from 2 Mercedes, 88 and 77. That's Acolis ASP and Almanar Racing. The best of the Audis in 4th place, thanks to Matteo Drudi. The second best of the Ferraris in 5th place, and so it goes down. You have to find the top BMW now. Good job from Sheldon Van der Linde. Twitch aside in the top 10. Remember, the highest one was in 13th, or was it 13th and 14th at the end of qualifying session 1? But we've got another qualifying session to add to all of this. It's about just finessing. Another good lap from Thomas Drouet there, and certainly very well placed for BMW.
It's a tricky one because the times at the end of Q2 do not bear relation to the average times, because you have to obviously add them to the first. And there's Stoltz, who has gone 2nd quickest in Q2. He's actually pulling right over onto the curb to give himself a little bit of clear track, and then he has to go for it. I think he's just about to be caught by Caldarelli. There in the pits is Froggatt. So Froggatt is there in pits, and I think they're done because they're not going to be able to get out to start another lap. So that's the Sky Tempesta McLaren done.
Yeah, 2 minutes 10 remaining. What we're seeing every car you seem to look at on the circuit is going, you know what, that's too much traffic. I've got to make space. I've got to make space for one more flyer. So we just saw Lucas Stoltz, the Almanar Racing Mercedes, backing it out into the final corner, very tight right-hander on the start-finish straight. But that's the only way he can guarantee he's got that clear line of sight down to turn 1 and to the bottom of the hill.
And as well as that, you're taking that wide trajectory onto the curb because it gives you the best radius to get on the throttle halfway around that corner so you can hit the highest possible top speed you can as you come over the line.
But it also puts an awful lot of muck onto your tyres. You can see some sitting there now. Timo Bogoslawski has got the 88 Mercedes. It was fastest in session 1 on aggregate with Timo's best time so far. And this one looks so it could be better. Is good for second, just 55 thousandths of a second across 2 qualifying sessions needs to be found. So Timo can do it because as we look at this white and blue Mercedes, he's got loads of space in front of him, which is exactly what you want and exactly what a lot of the 57 drivers are not finding. So going wide there, out nicely wide onto the Mistral straight, and you can see he's about a second and a bit down on the car in front of him. That should not enough to get a tow, but actually not enough to be tripped up. So that's actually the most important thing.
But this is where someone like Jules Gounon, who is sitting there waiting to go out for Q3, is sitting there thinking, 55 thousandths of a second, that's doable. That's really doable. So the confidence that they'll carry into Q3, knowing that over the 2 sessions, you know, Raffaelli's put in a 154, a 153.7, a 154.5 for Timo is obviously a lot slower, but he's got the ability, Jules, to get back into the 153s. They can do this.
But Timo actually has improved on his first sector time. You can see the green on the bottom graphic on the left, and he's improved in his second sector time on aggregate, as long as the target doesn't get improved by Robert Schwartzman, and that's a big ask, because as long as Thomas in the 51A, of course, the Ferrari's got clear track, he'll be doing exactly what Timo is doing now. Timo's got about 3 corners to go, and if he can shave, well, a tenth of a second off, they will go to the top on aggregate after 2. So sitting in the pit garage, Jules Gounon will be going, yeah, come on, a tenth here, a tenth there, and it will all add up into the final corner, onto the start finish straight, a tight corner over the curbs, neat, tidy, foot flat to the floor. Will we see the 88 Acodis ASP Mercedes go to the top or not?
What are we seeing a replay of here? Was that Beretta having another wild moment? Just watching the lines of these cars. Look how tight they are running as they go through that long flowing left. The checkered flag is out on circuit. Still the Ferrari on the top spot though, I noticed, because Bogoslawski has come through and he has not improved in the end. He had a bit of a scruffy third sector.
He must have done. There's also just suddenly looking at the driver warning screen and can see it, because quite often you get time issued and then time taken away very quickly for exceeding track limits. But it does seem that the 51 Ferrari that Alessio Rivera drove in the first session, and then Robert Schwartzman built on with a time of almost 1 minute 54 seconds flat. In fact, it's incredible. The 2 drivers, Rivera and Schwartzman, their best laps covered by just 15 thousandths. That's about calibrating it beautifully and equalising your drivers. There might still be some quick times coming in, but at the moment it's the 51 Ferrari from the 88 Acodis ASP Mercedes, the 777 Almanar Racing Mercedes. It's actually been quite static at the very top because it's still the number 40 Trezor Orange 1 Audi that's 4th in the pile.
That's more like it.
Well done, Daniel Serra there.
That's
Davide Rigon took it over from Daniel Serra.
But that's more like it for Ferrari, isn't it? Considering where they were in Monza and where they are now, this is exactly what they were hoping for from this new 296. It is a good car. It's obviously been developed with the races in mind, perhaps even more than the qualifying, but it's nice to know that all that hard work back at Maranello is finally paying off here at Paul Ricard, because they've finally got a car that is not just quick over, 3 hours of racing. It is quick in qualifying at last, and that's really good
at 11:45.
Yeah, you know what? Balanced performance and everything, but it's about, this is the first year for this car. The BMW M4 GT3 that shone so much at Monza, that actually made its race debut in 2021, but its full race debut in 2022. It takes a while for the engineers to fine-tune their cars and make them get the most of this out of this Pirelli racing rubber. What's the most important bit on a car? In so many ways, the black pit that connects it, stops it from hitting the ground. It's the tyres, and particularly at a circuit like this, that can be very warm indeed. What did we see? Just under 32 degrees track temperature when they went out. So the last few cars coming in at the end of qualifying session number 2. We have 1 more to go for the 3rd driver in each of these cars. And then, and only then, will we have the aggregate that will give us the order for the grid for tonight's race. 6 hours here at Paul Ricard, starting at 6 o'clock. But what we're seeing today, and I just want to applaud the BMW teams, they were 13th, 14th and backwards. They worked their way forward, 9th, 11th and 12th. If you're travelling one way in motor racing and it's up, That's a very good thing. But Ferrari, that was very, very strong indeed. Robert Schwartzman building on the work of Alessio Rivera. And for AF Corsa, their cars are 1st and 5th after Q1 and 2. But let's go down and hear from the driver who is in 5th at the moment. That's Davide Rigon.
Davide, it's tough out there. It's a lot of traffic, but of course for Ferrari it's looking strong. You got the fastest time in that session, and your teammate, of course, putting it on top on the aggregate.
Yeah, now let's see Antonio, which is very important also for him to find a very clear lap. For me, it was a very clear lap. I was lucky. In the peak of the tires was free. Also quite a good slipstream, so a very perfect lap for me. Was not expected, to be honest, because we were really struggling this weekend. But it's very good very positive for us to be there now. Let's see if we can keep this performance. And still, we need to improve our car. But very happy for my lap, and now focus for the race.
Thank you very much, Davide. Have a good weekend.
Great performances really at Ferrari. Dan Serra did a 154.6, Rigon did a 154.03. Rivera and Schwartzman, the difference was thousands. 154.065 for Rivera, 154.080 for Schwartzman. They're doing great.
So Ferrari top of the table after 2 of the 3 qualifying sessions. Alessio Rivera did session 1. Robert Schwartzman almost exactly matched his time. We're talking thousandths here. And that's given them a margin of advantage over the best of the rest, the 88 Mercedes ASP Mercedes, of 0.055 of a second. Treble 7, Mercedes in 3rd place. 4th place, the 40 Tracer Orange 1 Audi. 5th place, the second of those AF Corsa Ferraris. And then 6th place, we've got the second best of the Audis. That's car number 11 from Come To You Racing, a group that are getting better and better. 8th, 9th and 10th, we're going to the 87 ASP Mercedes in 7th place, 25 Audi in 8th place. That's Patrick Niederhauser building on Chris Vermeese's work. 9th and 10th, that's important. The 32 Team WRT BMW up into 9th place, breaks into the top 10. And the best of the Porsches, car number 96 from Rutronic Racing, Lauren Heinrich. We thought he'd do well. He did indeed do that. Now, looking through the classes, car 57, Winwood Racing, 13th overall. Indy Dontje joining Russell Ward in that one to go top of the gold class. 188 is the best of the cars in the bronze class, and that was Miguel Ramos. That's in a McLaren from Garage 59. And car number 85, that's going very well. 21st position overall, Grasso Racing, top of the silver class.
Yeah, it's really good for Winwood Racing in gold, isn't it? 1 and 2, in fact, for those 2 cars at the moment, so they're looking really, really strong at that point. It's definitely going to be continuously very strong. Pro-Am, obviously, going to be very, very competitive as well. The pole position at the moment in Pro-Am appears to be the Barwell. No, it's the Car Collection Motorsport. I do apologise. 36th at the moment for Fontana, Yakima and Ludwala. So there's a really strong challenge for them as they continue to move forward. The Barwell car definitely improved its form in that session, thanks to Rob Collard. He's definitely moving them up the table, but it's very, very tight up at the top there. But the Car Collection car definitely looking good for the Pro-Am pole at the moment, but definite battles with the Winwood Racing and the number 5 McLaren in the battle for gold. That's actually really tightened up from Q1, so we're going to see some really interesting battles between Mercedes and McLaren in the gold category alone. That's really looking like it's going to spice up the battle in the middle of the 6 hours later.
Well, the fans were already in the grandstands looking forward to qualifying session number 2, and let's take a look back at the highlights. 15 minutes of action on the track. It was fast, it was furious, and it was 57 cars trying to set the very best time to build on the time set by their first teammate in qualifying session number 1. Some crews were very early out onto the track, and certainly Optimum Motorsport thought the best way not to be obstructed by other cars was to go out very early indeed. Tracer Orange 1, the number 40 Audi, that's very much been at the sharp end of the field. That was Matthias Drudy putting on a charge. And then Dries van Toor trying to propel the BMW number 32 from Team WRT towards the sharp end of the field. A much better start this time for the sister car, car number 46, and that got out onto the circuit without a clatter in the pit lane, and that certainly was a great improvement for Augusto Farfus. But then Michele Beretta discovered that blue can almost lead to red if you go far enough off the circuit. Fortunately, he got that Lamborghini back on the track.
He was very fortunate to save it. Ferrari pushing like stink as well. Good to see Davide Rigon going fastest in the session, elevating the second Ferrari up to 5th position. Good consistency from Boguslavski to keep the Mercedes in the top 3, the number 88 Accordes ASP car. But Ferrari are doing a fantastic job with Schwartzman matching Rivera. It's the Ferrari that leads the way heading into Q3, and rightly so.
So there is another moment of calm between qualifying session 2 and qualifying session number 3. I did just spot a message on the screen saying investigation of the pace or possible excess pace of the 777 Mercedes in the pit lane during that session. That's sitting 3rd fastest, and if that time has, with Lucas Stoltz at the wheel, if there's any time penalty for them, this could be a disaster, because if you could be on the top 3 rows here, let's say, you're looking very, very good for the start of the 6 hours. We are dealing in tiny, tiny increments between these cars, and as we say, 0.4 of a second covers the top 9 cars after 2 qualifying sessions. So, in fact, the driver in 9th position who's going to out to see what he can do is Charles Weerts. He's had lots of experience of going towards the sharp end. So, as you said, if you can find a 10th here, a 10th there, or more to the point, not lose a 10th here or a 10th there in traffic and have your rivals maybe trip up a little bit, you can propel yourself. It's so tight at the top, but it's 51 AF Corsa Ferrari. Remember that from the 88. We're looking at the car that's 2nd fastest at the moment, and Jules Gounon is being slotted into that, and just see what the 2nd generation of the Flying Gounons can do.
Yeah, really good to see Jules getting his chance to fly. It's now time for Maxime Soulet to do what he can possibly do to try and elevate the Audi a little bit further forward. This is where the Com2U squad have a really decent chance of something now, and they're going to want to push themselves into a decent position. Just coming back to the Almanar investigation, that could really prove costly for Stoltz. Just having that little bit of an issue with the speeding penalty, that really can cost them a lot. And when you consider the amount of effort they put in at Monza, and for it to all come apart in the closing stages of the race, and it fell apart, they ended up retiring from the race. All that effort, and they came away with nothing. They really need a strong result at Paul Ricard, so it's very important from them. Here is the leading car in Pro-Am, the Car Collection Motorsport team, and Nicky Lutvaller is now hoping to secure the pole.
Yeah, well, Nicky Lutvaller had an awful start early in the race at Monza, where car went to left when it should have been going straight on, coming down into the first turn. And good to see he was fine, and well done to the Car Collection Motorsport team for getting it back together. He's taking the tactic that Team Parker Racing did in qualifying session 2, get out early on and see if you can possibly get a clear track, and hopefully for them that will work. At the moment, leading, as we said, the Prime class in 36th position, but if he can gain a 10th of a second by not having other cars around him, that could be huge. But at the moment he's sitting on a margin of 13 positions on aggregate, clear of the best challenger, which is the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. But they've got 2 of their drivers done, and Dennis Lind, who ought to be the quickest of the trio, Flying Dane, coming out in the 3rd session in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. But right now, Car Collection Motorsport pressing on, and let's see if there can be an improvement. But for Nicky Lutvaller, that's worked very nicely indeed, that tactic.
So drivers to watch for then in the 3rd session. Well, obviously Charles Weerts is going to try and put the WRT BMW even higher than 9th position. Nick Yellerly and Hesse, of course, in the Rove BMWs that did such a fantastic job at Monza. They'll want to get themselves into as competitive position as possible. Keep an eye on Engelhardt in the Pro Porsche, the number 54 car. They're just outside the top 10 at the moment. A decent run, though, from Engelhardt can actually really elevate them. Dean McDonald in the number 5 McLaren. They might be able to snatch something off of Messrs. Ellis and Zug in the Winward Mercedes to snatch back that pole position. There's Michelle Gatting for the Iron Dames in her Lamborghini. They look like they've got a decent chance to get something fairly consistent out of the 3rd and final session. They could do with a little bit of elevation after Rael Frey and Sarah Bovey were very comparable in pace, both in the 156s, low 156s from both. If Michelle can just nudge into the 155s, they could go about 5 or 6 places higher up the grid, and that keeps them away from the cannon fodder into turn 1 and into turn 3 tomorrow, later on this evening, I should say.
Yeah, and again, it's actually a very impressive lap from Rahel, because the driver this year who's been starring in the World Endurance Championship qualifying sessions when they send the bronze driver out has been Sarah Bovey. She's been getting stronger and stronger. Right, of course, in that they're racing a Porsche, but here they are racing a Lamborghini. Of course, Iron Lynx Racing and Iron Dames looking towards moving up when Lamborghini comes to do prototypes in 2024. So many drivers have to look ahead to see where their career may go. But right now, where do you want to be? You want to be at the top of the charts. Who's at the top of the charts? We've got a team that got 3 times on the board. That's why they're top of the charts, and it's the number 8 crew from AGS Events with their Lamborghini. That's the white, black and green car. At the moment, that's top of the charts. Nico Jamin has just put in his time. So he's running in the bronze class lead and the overall lead. And the number 62 Porsche that we saw go out early in the previous session, that's second, Andy Merrick, but he's going to change fast. We've got all the other cars coming through, still 50 cars to get a third qualifying time in.
Stop the clock right now, the Iron Dames are leading.
Yes.
Stop the clock right now. But no, I'm glad you picked up on that in relation to Lamborghini coming in 2024 with their prototype program. It would be an amazing return for the efforts of the Iron Dames. Look how close they came to glory last year. Look how tight it was, and all of the effort and the hard work that not just the 3 drivers on the crew, but the entire squad put in to last year to have it snatched away at the last with mechanical difficulties. They deserve a chance to prove it.
They do, and again, fabulous long shot looking into the corner at the end of the senior straight. You can see if you go a little bit wide, there's the number 8 Lamborghini that's from AGS events. We mentioned Fleeting was at the top of the charts, is now down behind the Iron Dames Lamborghini. But again, if you run a little bit wide, already at this early stage of this meeting with so much track action, there are great big lumps of rubber and other muck on the outside. Another reason not to go over the white lines at the edge of the circuit, but it's so tempting, and it's about get a clear lap. Do not pick up a puncture, particularly in a 15-minute qualifying session. Just over 9 minutes remaining in this, and so you can see, if you have to come in, get another tyre fitted, you limp in slowly, you have the change, and your session is very much shot. Someone going very slowly, but again, don't worry, it's just coming into the final corner. It's one of those 2 AF Corsa Ferraris. They wanted those cars not in their passage. Now they'll let them go, they'll start accelerating hard, and then they should have a 2-second buffer, which should be about right as they accelerate onto the flying lap.
Another driver worth keeping an eye on for this one, Maxime Martin. Don't forget, he's the 3rd driver in the 46 WRT BMW. Already there's been a big elevation from Augusta Farfus to move them up from about 40th odd into the low 29s. I think they ended up 25th or 26th after the second session, so they could drop themselves into the top 20 here quite nicely with a decent strong lap from Maxime Martin. He's worth a watch.
So if you just simply came in and turned on the screen when you're watching at home, you go, who's top? Well, just give it a couple of minutes.
Give us about 90 seconds.
The real picture, because at the moment we've had a dozen of the 57 cars have set qualifying laps across all 3 sessions. The graphic on the left of your screen only carries an aggregate time.
And that's the thing. You've got to add all 3 qualifying sessions together. It's Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3. Take the 3 times, and then take the average from all 3. That's where you get your pole position from. Provisional pole, Dean McDonald. They are gunning for the gold pole position, and they are in a real battle with the 2 Windward Mercedes cars. We'll have to keep an eye on that battle as we continue through the session. But when the pros come out and set their time, as there you see Jules Gounon, he is trying to get the pole position, as is Charles Weerts in Q3. Now, Charles Weerts isn't going to get the outright pole. I think they're just a little bit too far back. But going fastest in Q3 is definitely going to elevate that number 32 WRT BMW closer to the top 6, and that's what they've got to be aiming for. They've got to try and crowbar that BMW into the top 6. But Jules Gounon's lap, this is critical. He's got to tidy this up right as he comes out of the final turn. Not a lot of opposite lock. That was very smooth back on the power. He's got a Porsche in front of him that's not quite going to give him the toe he needs to get any more power out of it, but it's a clean lap. Look at that, a 152.982, and we've got a McLaren in one of the Marshall posts.
Oh dear, try and work out which is it, which of the cars it is. I thought it might be the Sky Tempest, but I think it's unfortunately for Garage 59 one of their 2 cars. But that was a fabulous lap, fastest lap of the weekend so far from Jules Gounon. Put some 0.4 of a second clear of the number 71 Ferrari, but the times will keep on changing. But that was tricky because there was a lot of traffic there for Jules Gounon. He had Marius Zulk just up in front of him with the Windward Racing Mercedes for a while, slightly distracting for him.
Well, that McLaren stopped out on the circuit is not going to stop the session or pause it, because they've managed to be at a Marshall post at exactly the right time. Look at the long faces at Ferrari. A 152.9 they're looking at that time. Where did he find that from? Well, that's a massive lap.
Well, it's phenomenal. Traffic could really affect around here, but that was good for, well, Antonio Fuoco's time was a 1 minute 53.7, which
and he's going quicker again, look.
Well, there's a big difference. He won't have a car right in front of him. The car we're looking at now is one of the chasers. It's the 777 Almanar racing car, but with no flying lap on the board as yet in this third qualifying session. It's down, falling all the time on the timing screens, 44th position overall. As soon as a flying lap is issued, is achieved by Almanar Racing, they will be probably back into the top 10, maybe the top 5. But look, you have to work your corner so hard to get the other traffic out of the way, and just make sure that some of the drivers in the bronze class have seen you before you commit to that dive up the inside. So a little bit of caution, but onto the start finish straight goes Almanar Racing. Its time will move it up the order. It's sitting at 48th position when that time goes on the board, having achieved 3 laps on aggregate. Goes good for second place overall, 0.143 of a second down. Hello, Mercedes fans, you can smile. Audi fans, you too can smile because your car has been elevated. The best of yours through the 2 sessions before was number 40. It's still number 40. It's third overall. So the best Ferrari now, car 71, is in 4th place. It's got to lead a fight back. The driver doing that at the moment is Antonio Fuoco.
Yeah, it's a good run for Schiller to put them second, but Dennis Marshall in that Treasure Orange Audi has just gone fastest in Sector 1, so they could elevate themselves up even higher than third. Across the line comes the Ferrari. This is Fuoco, and they remain in 4th position, but it's an improvement of the time. That's important. 1:54.0 for them. That increases the average to 1:53.4. So that takes them out of a few of the other drivers trying to take it away from them. Nielsen's done better. That's more like it. Nicholas Nielsen's just done a 1:53.5. That keeps the Ferrari in contention for pole.
I can offer you someone else who's made a big move. He was 6th, he's now 7th. Charles Wirtz has slowly, they've accelerated up the order of 32. Team WRT, BMW 7th overall at the moment. What else is going to change? You certainly feel as we look at Dennis Marshall, if he doesn't get traffic, what have we got left for? Just under 5 minutes. He's got a Lamborghini across his nose. He too could improve. But at the moment, it's still all about the ATA to Codis ASP Mercedes, an advantage of 0.143 of a second. Oh, so unfortunate there. Now, coming onto the start-finish straight, Dennis Marshall needs to hang back. He's going to be possibly slightly confused, maybe compromised by the Lamborghini right across his nose. If that doesn't want to let him pass, this lap is going to be surely wasted.
So the second fastest lap in Q3 has actually just been set by the Winwood Racing Mercedes of the gold driver Philip Ellis, and that has elevated them big style ahead of McDonald and Zug in their battle for the gold pole position. That puts them 10th overall after the aggregate. But Philip Ellis, that's a big lap from him. He's just done a 1:53.3.
Second best time in session. Very, very, very competitive indeed. Still the best time, 1 minute 52.982 by Jules Gounon, and that was with a bit of traffic across his bows. Let's see what can change, and let's have a look about what a second from pole takes you all the way down to 17th place. That's how competitive it is here. 17th place at the moment, no doubt trying to improve. Running in the silver class is Benjamin Ites, the driver from Chile.
Yeah, they have done a fantastic job, the GRT Grasser Lamborghini. They've been fastest in the silver category in all 3 qualifying sessions, so there's no doubting that they're going to get the pole ahead of the number 12 machine. That is down the freight at the moment, but that's definitely all sorted for them. They're going to be a long way ahead of De Jong, Hesselmans and Hutchison in the Audi. As across the line, no change between the top 3. It's still Mercedes, Ferrari, the Treasure Orange Audi in 4th, and then Antonio Fuoco in the 2nd of the Ferraris. But this is such a better headline for Ferrari, not we're getting better. Now it's top 5. We are winners in the making. We are getting there with this 296 now, and we are going to challenge for the win today.
Now, every position that can be gained by anybody in this field is going to be an advantage, but particularly the closer you get to the very top of the field. If you've only got 5 cars in front of you, that reduces the incident factor down into turn 1. It's a very tricky corner. Turn 1 and turn 2 get very close together. Talking about close together, wow, that was very tight indeed for one of the Winwood Racing. That was Philip Ellis's car that's been flying so well, car number 57, and well,
that cost him a second. Look at that.
Oh, it really, really did. But what he didn't do was clatter into the back of the Audi in front of him, because that could have lent to little dive plane damage that really is going to hurt you big time. I know it's only a few laps remaining, but these little things on the front of the car, these little dive planes and things, they make a big difference in terms of aerodynamic stability. Not so much the ultimate speed, of course, in the course of the race. If it's out, that will put pressure on a particular tyre in another way and affect the handling of the car.
But they are feeling the pressure because the sister car, this one, Marius Zug, has just done a 1:53 as well. So Marius Zug has done a 1:53.7, which takes the average to 1:54.4. So the sister car might actually catch them. They've only got to gain an average of about 0.16 of a second over the 3 sessions to steal it away. And this is a quick lap from Marius Zug. If you can get a competitive lap time out of the next one, which will have to be the last lap they can do, you see they bailed out of the 3rd sector. They're going for 1 more flying lap. If they can just nail that final lap together, it might be the 1:57 that gets the gold pole rather than the 57. So there's that little bit of added pressure, which is why you're seeing that little bit of antsiness, that little bit of irritation from Philip Ellis when he got balked at the final corner.
Well, Timo Bogoslawski looking at the screens, not looking at the screens. His car on aggregate is clear by 0.123 of a second. It's
they parked it
into the background, so no further charging from Jules Gounon, but he absolutely delivered at that first flying lap, even with a bit of traffic. The only driver to go below 1 minute 53. Surely, can you say surely in motor racing? That should be safe. It's a Mercedes that's still giving chase. It's Fabian Schiller, the treble 7 car. His best lap in this session is 1 minute 53.3. You can see why the margin has expanded there. So for Timo Bogoslawski on the left of the screen, the more cars that report in before the checkered flag, the happier he will feel. But he's really looking to see if any challenge will come from the 777 Mercedes, any challenge from the best of the Ferraris. It might be 51 or it might be 71. They're third and fifth overall. And what can Dennis Marshall do? Can he do anything? Sitting fourth in the number 40 Audi from Team Orange, sorry, Tracer Orange 1.
One last chance there for Philip Ellis to try and do things better, as Charles Weerts has finished, and they have got 8th position out of the aggregate. So that's not a bad return, considering how tricky it was for Dries van Tor in the first session. There's frustration there. You can sense that. They really felt we could have got top 5. We could even have got a front row of the grid here. And there's a little bit of frustration, I think. Whereas down at Acodis Mercedes, they think they've got it. And I think they've got reason to be confident, because that car is definitely looking tough to catch. You're going to need a massive lap now from Niklas Nielsen. His best is a 1:53.5 compared to Jules Gounon on a 1:52.9. The checkered flag is out. So Nielsen's got to find at least another 0.3 of a second to drop that average down in their favour. There is the Boutsen VDS car, the leading Pro-Am. So they've taken it away from the car collection. They've done it right at the last, I think. So that's very nicely done at the end there for the Boutsen VDS. Silver Cup 4th place, in fact, so they're not quite towards the front end, but they're definitely ones to watch out for. Cesar Gazzo really elevating them towards the end there, and that's definitely going to give them plenty to be happy with. The GRT Grasser Lamborghini, though, is going to be the silver pole. No problems at all for them. They're a good 10 positions ahead of the number 12 Audi that's done a good job in Q3, but on the overall, they're not going to get anywhere near it. Finley Hutchison, unfortunately, in the ComTU Racing Audi, they'll have to be content with 2nd in silver. But this gold pole, it looks like it's going to be a windward one too.
It certainly does. Very impressive. So Russell Ward did the first knockings, Indy Doncher, Dutch racer, the third, second, and then Philip Ellis, the driver from Switzerland, the last of the 3 sessions.
And how close is it for the pole in bronze?
How close would you like it?
There's literally like thousandths of a second between it across the 3 sessions. Pret in the McLaren has managed to get it to 1.029 off the pole outright. But look at Haupt, it's not even a 1/10 of a second behind him. That is so close after 3 sessions. So McLaren have just snatched the pole position off the number 78 Mercedes there, of the 78 Lamborghini, I should say, sorry, of Dennis Lind in the Barwell. That is ridiculously close.
Well, we felt it was going to close up, but the job was done by the team that took pole position, and it was the 88 Acodis ASP Mercedes. It was started by Raffaele Marcello, but let's hear from Timo Bogoslawski and Jules Gounon.
Well, boys, congratulations. That means pole position for you guys on the aggregate. A fantastic time there.
Yeah, that was a good lap. I like this track, you know, it's my own track, as I said. I live 2 hours from here, and in the Bentley I was always good, but my 2 teammates did a fantastic job. It started from Lelo, which did Lelo thing, which is P1, and having a great lap. Then Timo did a good lap, and at the end I also had a lot of fun. So thanks to the team, thanks to Mercedes. This winter we worked super hard. Here we came a lot testing, and there's no secret in any sport. The more you train, the more you test, the quicker you get.
Absolutely. I love to hear that you've been having fun. That's brilliant. Timo, you said to us at Brands that you were struggling a little bit. You've got your form back.
Yeah, I mean, we worked quite a lot yesterday, I can say, so just reset my mind and yeah, speed will come. But anyway, I'm to be honest, I'm not so happy about my quali lap because yeah, it was not so good. I have quite a lot of margin, but yeah. Anyway, mega thanks to my best teammates, and yeah. So.
Thank you very much, Lelo. Just a final word from you. Obviously, we spoke to you a little bit earlier on, but any ideas of how it's going to work for the race? Who's starting?
I don't know. I think it's Jules.
Flip a coin, maybe.
I think it's Jules.
We do rock, paper, scissors.
They want to drive in the night, so I think I do the end, and I mean, we will speak after the race, I will say.
Thank you very much. Have a good race.
Well, very good to hear there from Jules Gounon on the right of the screen, Raffaele Marcello and Timo Bogoslawski. Doesn't matter what the margin is, they have pole position. In the end, it was by 0.123 of a second. So small margins, but it was right. And it was about being in the top 3 rows, I really think is important.
Yeah, special moment for Jules Gounon, who said, you know, he lives 2 hours away from here in the beautiful Principality of Andorra. And what a fabulous moment for him and for the team. Look at that, the Acodis ASP Mercedes then 1/10 of a second ahead of the Almanar Mercedes. So it is an all Stuttgart front row of the grid, but Ferrari, look at that, 3rd and 5th. They've really done a fantastic job of developing that car. The Tracer Orange Audi in 4th position. The Com2U Audi is in the top 6 as well. The Mercedes of the second Ecodis car finds itself in 7th position, with Mies, Niederhauser and Gachet in the Santalog Junior in 8th place. The WRT is 9th. 10th position for the gold pole position. The Winwood team are 10th and 12th. They are going to start right up at the sharp end with the Optima McLaren in the mix there as well. The GRT Grasser racing car is the leading silver for Schmidt, Van Berlo and Heat. They did a fantastic job. Very close indeed between the Garage 59 Garage 59 McLaren and the Haupt Racing Mercedes as they duelled over the pole positioning class there for bronze, but it was so tight between them. A fabulous battle, and they're going to have a fantastic race going into it again this evening as well. And in the Pro-Am category, well, pole position was always going to be a tough one, but it is the Barwell Motorsport car that takes it in the end. Ballon, Collard and Lind did a fantastic job in the end. On the aggregate, they were just able to overturn the tables on the Car Collection Motorsport Porsche. It was a very tight thing, but look at that, all the way down to 57th place. 5.2 seconds is the average due to the difficulties that were made for Froggatt and Cheever. They didn't get out in the 2nd and 3rd sessions, nor did Riegel and Leroux or Denouel and Combs, so they are down at the back. But of the cars that did come out onto the circuit for all 3 sessions, 3.5 seconds covering 54 machines. Don't you just love the Fanatec GT World Challenge? It's so close after 3 sessions.
It's so close, and whatever manufacturer you support or whatever driver you support, there is so much to see. We're all set now for, we can go and have lunch, but the teams have to work on their cars. And we have the race starting at 6 o'clock for 6 hours this evening. So we cannot wait. Qualifying was quickfire. We can put it behind us and see what comes ahead. Let's take a look back at the highlights of the 3rd qualifying session. The teams are now into their swing at this point, but it was about getting their 3rd driver to set a banker lap. Then you can build on that. That means you've got your aggregate across all 3 sessions. You can see people pushing on very hard indeed. A car that was very well placed, and now it was the Dennis Marshall driven number 40 Tracer Orange 1 Audi. He was pressing on. The Ferraris, they started the session in 2 cars in the top 5, and they were also working very, very hard indeed. Nicholas Nielsen driving the number 51.
Yeah, Mercedes and Audi particularly strong over the course of this session and all 3 sessions in aggregate. BMW trying to crowbar their way into the top 10 as well. Ferrari strong and consistent in the top 5. Winwood have a 1-2 in the gold pole position sessions. We have the GRT Grasser in pole and silver. We have the Barwell at the top in the Pro-Am category. But it's Mercedes all the way, 1st and 2nd, getting ready for the 1,000 kilometers. It's great for the 3-pointed star.